Hello, this is Claus Jensen presenting my third video in my Nimzowitsch series. And this third game is a very instructive game on one of the most important concepts developed by Nimzowitsch, prophylaxis. And I'm sure that the 20-year-old Nimzowitsch, after having played this game, must have realized that chess is not only a question of carrying out your own plans. Sometimes it's as rewarding to prevent your opponent plans, and this is what prophylaxis is all about, preventing your opponent from carrying out his plans. And this very concept has been adopted by all top players ever since Nimzowitsch published this thought on prophylaxis, and Anatoly Karpov perhaps being one of the clearest examples of a top player with an extended use of prophylaxis in his games. The game you're about to watch is from Carlsbad 1907, and it was a very strong tournament with 21 participants. The winner of the tournament was Akiba Rubinstein. Maroczy was second. Nimzowitsch ended in fourth spot. And further down the table we had great players like Schlechter, Wittmer, Teichmann, Marshall, Spielmann, Tartakova and Chigorin. And some of the notes are Nimzowicz's own notes to the game, as they were published in his work Chess Praxis, an excellent book where he annotated a lot of instructive games to show how his theoretical ideas from his book My System was used in practical play. And both My System and Chess Praxis is a must-read for all chess players. In this game, Nimzowitsch plays the black side of a Ruy Lopez, and his opponent with the white pieces is Karl Schlechter, a very strong Austrian master. In fact, he drew Lasker in a World Championship match only 3 years after this game was played. So please enjoy the game Schlechter Nimzowitsch from Carlsbad 1907. And the game starts e4 from Schlechter, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, and this is the Ruy Lopez. Bishop a4, knight f6, knight c3, bishop b4, knight d5, bishop e7, castles, rook e1, d6, knight takes f6, bishop takes c3, and Nimzow's comment to this h6 move is that black decides on a waiting policy. h3 from Schlechter, knight e7, d4, knight g6, bishop e3, and king h7. And as Nimzow says, black still marks time. Queen d2, bishop e6, bishop c2, and queen e7. And Nimzowitsch has played this opening very passively, waiting for Schlechter to show his intentions. And now comes the first significant move in the game, d5. And Nimzowitsch is very critical about this move and comments, "White had done better to mark time also. The text move would have a meaning only if it were introducing an attack on the queen side, c4 and b4. But since he intends to operate on the king side, d5 is a bad preparation." Bishop d7 from Nimzow, and as Nimzowitsch said on the previous move, it would be more consistent for white to play on the queen side, for example c4 here, or perhaps b4. Both c4 and b4 are moves that white could play on the queen side, but he plays king h2 instead. And then comes knight h8, and Nimzow explains this move. It's a preventive move directed against white's plan of knight g1 and f4. And knight g1 was in fact what Schlechter played in the game. g5, g3, knight g6. And now one could wonder if the planned f4 is possible or not, but it isn't, because f4 would be met by e takes, g takes, bishop takes, knight takes. And now queen cannot take because of bishop e5, pinning the queen to the king. So he would have to play e5 with check first, knight back to g6, and after e takes, queen takes, then black has simply won a pawn and white has no compensation. So f4 isn't possible. Queen d1 was a move played by Schlechter. Bishop back to g7, queen f3, and a5. And Nimzowicz's comment to this move is, again, preventive play. This time the possibility of c4 and b4 is to be anticipated. Schlechter played knight e2, bishop b5 from Nimzowitsch, a4, and bishop d7. And Nimzo now says it is achieved. The white queenside has lost all momentum, and the action just mentioned to be initiated by c4 and b4 is a thing of the past. Rook h1, and Nimzo says here, with this move, white plans to break through eventually with h4. And for example, b6, h4, g takes, knight takes, queen h5, f5, king g1, and white has a very strong attack, pressure on h6. So queen e8 was played in the game, and Nimzowitsch himself gives this queen e8 an exclamation mark, because the threat here is queen c8, and after queen c8 there's always bishop g4 in the air if white plays h4, and white therefore has no further time for preparation, and he opens the battle for a breakthrough. He plays h4 here, and then comes this queen c8. And the threat here, as we said, is bishop g4, so white has to defend his knight. He plays bishop d3 here. Bishop g4 came anyway, queen d2, g takes h4, f3, and now comes h3. And after queen f1, Nimzo says the breakthrough looks like it's succeeding. For if now bishop d7, then g4, and then queen takes h3, and again we have this strong pressure in the h-file. But Nimzo played f5 instead, and this is in fact sacking a piece. And in the game, Schlechter actually took the piece, but this was losing the game. But let's have a look at some alternatives. For example, knight g1 here is an option, and then f4 has to be played, and again the bishop cannot be taken because of f takes e3, and if queen takes, then rook f2 check, and if other queen moves, then queen takes a3, then still rook f2 check. And if g takes f4, then e takes, bishop g4, knight e5, and if f takes g4 now, then knight takes, knight e3 check is winning for black. So he has to play bishop e2, then bishop g7, knight takes h3, and then we have this interesting position. But instead of knight g1, Schlechter took the bishop on g4, and this move is losing. Nimzowitsch is right. F takes e4 came now. Queen takes h3, and e takes d3, and now Nimzo comments, only now we can see the full effect of the h3 move, because by this move the white queen was forced from g2 to f1 into the range of the black rook. Black now played, Schlechter now played bishop takes h6, rook a8 came, h8 came. And Nimzo says this game is noteworthy on account of the comprehensive prophylaxis employed. Preventive measures were taken against c4 and b4, as well against f4 and later against h4. A few words about the characteristics of the preventive moves selected. The waiting policy by h6 is typical of this style of play. For waiting moves form the beginning of all prophylactic maneuvers. The fact that the preventive move queen e8 contained a threat at the same time by no means detracts from its purity in a prophylaxis, in which part of the plan is to drive the opponent to accelerated action. End of Nimzowitsch quote. So, in this position where Schlechter is losing a piece without compensation, he resigned the game. And I hope you enjoyed watching this game and some of Nimzowicz's annotations to this game. I believe this is probably the best game of Nimzowicz's early career, because at this time he was only 21 and he had very good development over the next 25 years or so. But this was surely one of the best of his early career. So thanks for watching this video and prepare for more Nimzo videos in the future. Bye bye for now.